In this video, I want to talk about a new swim bait to the market. Well, actually not a new swim bait. This is one that is being reintroduced by Bass Pro Shops, and that is the Bass Pro Shop XPS. I guess it's called the Comeback Shad now. This is really one of the original 6-inch style baits, and this particular bait has really kind of an incredible story to it. And not only does it have an incredible story, but as you can see, I have bought several of these baits. I've been using them, and I want to let you guys know if it's even worth buying. So before we get into the video, guys, this one is brought to you by my apparel company, Fin Fishing. Right now, if you buy one of my USA made sun shirts, which are one of the only USA made sun shirts out there on the market, you can get a hat at 50% off, and that's a hat with a wooden bass badge on the front. So all you gotta do is add the shirt you like to cart, add the hat you like to cart. It will automatically discount at checkout, and it is one of the best, if not the best way to help support this channel. I will leave a link down below in the description and in the comments. All right, let's talk about this particular bait, the Bass Pro Shop XPS. I thought it was just called the XPS Shad or the XPS Swimmer back in the day. They have now rebranded it as the Comeback Shad. And this particular bait, if you haven't heard, it has a very, very interesting story. I've known about this bait for a long time, but I've never really been able to get my hands on it because Bass Pro Shop discontinued this a number of years ago. Like in the early 2000s, they discontinued this bait. But the cool thing or the interesting thing about this is that several years after they had discontinued this bait, it started to rise in popularity. And the big reason that it started to rise in popularity is that a number of major bass tournaments were starting to be won on a certain swim bait. And guess what swim bait that was? This Bass Pro Shop cheap swim bait. And it was really, really interesting because it wasn't just one guy, it was a number of different guys. And it was a number of guys who weren't sponsored by Bass Pro Shop. And so to me, that's always interesting when a number of guys are using the exact same bait and winning tournaments, because that's how you kind of know the bait is the deal. And we saw guys like Fred Rumbanis, Steve Kennedy, Takahiro Amore, all different anglers win major tournaments in really different fisheries on this particular bait. Now, the interesting thing about the XPS Swimmer is that this bait was kind of the original mag draft. A lot of us know about the Megabass mag draft. I have talked so much about that bait. I love that bait. I've caught so many big fish. I've just caught so many fish on that bait. And if you really think about it, a lot of guys think of that particular bait as kind of that original 6-inch bait. Nope. That was actually probably this bait, really being the kind of original 6-inch bait that won so many tournaments. And something that people really loved about this particular bait was just how slow that you could fish it. Now, I actually just listened to the Chris Zaldain podcast where they talked a little bit more about this bait. He said that it swam like crap back in the day, but I actually just did a lot of testing with this particular bait. As a matter of fact, I did a lot of testing with the majority of the popular 6-inch baits that are out there on the market, like the mag draft, like the dangerous swim bait by Bass Mafia, the Megalodon, the 6 Cents Hangover. I actually tested all these baits, showed some underwater footage. I'll actually leave a link for that video. It's over on BassFishingHQ at the end of this video if you guys want to watch it. But something that I found really interesting about this particular bait is that this bait, this Bass Pro Shop Swimmer, which swims, it's $8.99. That's the other thing. It's a cheap swim bait. It actually swims slower than a mag draft. And it's not by a lot, but when I was doing my testing, I actually found that I could reel this at 1.1 miles an hour, where a mag draft, usually you need about 1.3 to get that tail to start to kick. Now, both of those baits blew out of the water. They kind of blow out, they kind of roll on their side right around 2 miles an hour. But that's pretty slow to be able to fish a bait. And that is part of the drawing power of this bait, is being able to fish it really slow. You get a lot of good head waggle, you get a lot of good tail wiggle to it. So I was actually very impressed by this bait, but the big thing that you should know about this bait, and I haven't looked at, I think I bought 6 of them. The first one that I took out of the package was honestly, it was a complete dud. And that's actually this bait, the one that I'm holding right here. This one, no matter what I did with it, it was swimming on its side. No matter how fast, how slow, like this one, and I've looked at it, I can't really figure out why it is doing that. It just, for whatever reason, it swims like this. It swims on its side. But the very next bait that I pulled out, excuse me, the very next bait that I pulled out swam perfectly fine. And as a matter of fact, like I said, it swam just as good, in my opinion, as a bait like a mag draft. So the long story with this bait is I do think that it's worth buying at that $8.99 price point, but just know that you may want to buy a couple of them. So is it, you know, in reality cheaper than a mag draft? Well, if you have to buy 2 of them, they're about the same price. But the thing is that maybe you get 2 that work really, really well, or maybe you get 2 that are duds. But either way, I was still pretty impressed with this bait being at the $8.99 price point. Now, if you guys want to watch the video that I just did, that I just released on Bass Fishing HQ, where I tested out all these swim baits, I'm going to leave it linked right here. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you learned a little bit about the Bass Pro Shop XPS swimmer, and I will see you guys tomorrow.